Hello all, I am Vinit Krishna. In this presentation we will be discussing module 6 of the subject MA206 Fluid Machinery. This is the first part of the presentation. A compressor is a device that pressurizes a working fluid. One of the basic aims of using a compressor is to compress the fluid and deliver it at a pressure higher than its original pressure. Now there are different types of compressors, out of which we will be studying in detail about rotary compressors in this module. Now in this type of compressor, rapidly rotating parts, that is impellers, which will accelerate fluid to a high speed, and this high velocity is then converted into additional pressure by gradual deceleration in the diffuser or volute which surrounds the impeller. The rotary positive displacement compressors have rotating elements whose positive action results in compression and displacement. Now the rotary compressors are classified into two types mainly, positive displacement type and dynamic action type. In positive displacement type rotary air compressors, the air is compressed by being trapped in the reduced space formed by means of two sets of engaging surfaces, and the pressure of air is increased by squeezing action. Now the examples of positive displacement type compressors are Roots blower, vane compressor, screw compressor, and Lejome compressor. Whereas in the case of dynamic compressor, the air is not trapped in specified boundaries, but the air flows continuously and steadily through the compressor, and pressure is increased due to dynamic action, that is centrifugal force or accelerating force. Now the examples for dynamic action type compressors are centrifugal compressor and axial flow compressor. Now we will focus on centrifugal compressors. The centrifugal compressor is a radial flow dynamic action type compressor. The centrifugal compressor utilizes mechanical energy imparted to the machine from an external source to increase the static pressure head of air. It consists essentially of a stationary casing containing a rotating impeller which imparts high velocity to the air and a number of fixed diverging passages in which the air is decelerated with a consequent rise in the static pressure. The diverging passages is known as diffuser. It delivers much higher flow rates than positive displacement compressors, generally used for low pressure ratios, that is for moderate pressure ratios between 4 to 6 in a single stage. If higher pressure ratio with larger unit is required, then it's better to go with axial flow compressor. It usually operates at speeds greater than 3000 rpm. Now centrifugal compressors are preferred due to their simplicity, lightweight, reliability, and low starting torque. The disadvantages being larger frontal area and lower maximum efficiency. Now talking about the applications, they are better suited for applications requiring large quantities of air, that is above 50 meter cube per second. The most well-known applications are being gas turbines and turbochargers. Here we can see the two views of a centrifugal compressor. At the center you can see an impeller. Now the rotating impeller is radial disc on which a series of radial blades or vanes are attached. The impeller rotates inside the stationary casing. The center of the impeller is called eye. The impeller is usually forged or die-cast aluminum alloy. The casing of the compressor is an important part of the centrifugal compressor which surrounds the impeller. Now the casing of the compressor has a volute shape, that is of increasing cross-sectional area towards the exit. Now the diffuser is another important part of the centrifugal compressor which surrounds the impeller, and it also provides a diverging passage for airflow. The main function of the diffuser is to convert high velocity head of air which is coming out from the impeller into static pressure head. That is the air which is coming out from the impeller will be having high velocity and high pressure, but once it passes through the diffuser passages, Now its velocity drops and pressure further increases. Now the air coming out of the diffuser is collected in the casing and taken out from the outlet of the compressor. Here you can see an impeller. Also you can see a diffuser which surrounds the impeller. Now the center portion of the impeller is called eye. Now you can also see the impeller blades, how the impeller blades are attached to the impeller. Also you can see a space, that is a free space between the diffuser and impeller blades. Main components of a centrifugal compressor: impeller, diffuser and casing. The impeller is also known as rotor of the centrifugal compressor. Here in the impeller, the transfer of mechanical energy to air takes place. The eye of the impeller is the part through which air is drawn into the impeller. As the impeller rotates, the working fluid experiences a centrifugal force, and due to this force, both the velocity and pressure of the air increases as it is passing through the impeller. Now in the impeller, the area of flow gradually increases to increase the pressure. The air coming out of the impeller will be having an increased pressure and velocity. Now the second component of centrifugal compressor is diffuser. It is a static part, or it is also called stator in the centrifugal compressor. They are housed in a radial portion of the casing. Along the diffuser, the area of flow increases, so that as the flow area increases, the velocity comes down and pressure increases. Now the air from the impeller directly flows to the diffuser. The air from the impeller is having both kinetic energy and pressure energy. So when this air flows through the diffuser, a major part of the kinetic energy is converted into pressure energy. That is due to the diverging passage, increasing cross-sectional area. Now the third component, casing. The casing surrounds the rotating impeller and stationary diffuser. Now in these figures you can see the different types of impellers. And the first one, backswept impeller, the outlet angle to the rotor, that is beta 2, is less than or equal to 90 degree. When the outlet angle to the rotor, that is beta 2, is greater than or equal to 90 degree, it is called forward swept impeller. When beta 2 angle is equal to 90 degree, it is called radial exit impeller. You can also see two other types, shorted impeller and impeller with splitter blades. Working of centrifugal compressor. Air enters the eye of the impeller with low velocity C1 or V1 and atmospheric pressure P1. The graph for the same is given in the next slide. Now also please note the velocity is given as C1 or V1. Now we are using C to represent velocity because the working fluid here is air. So in order to distinguish air and liquid, which we saw in the case of turbines and pumps, there in order to represent velocity we used V. So here the case of compressor we will be using C to represent velocity instead of capital V. So please get familiarized with that. Now the air enters axially through the eye of the impeller and moves radially through the impeller outlet. Now during this movement, energy from the impeller is transferred to the air. This energy transfer increases the velocity and pressure of the air. Thus the air leaving the impeller has an increased velocity and pressure. The velocity and pressure at the outlet of the impeller is denoted by C2 or V2 and P2 respectively in the graph given in the next slide. Now the air leaving the impeller enters the diffuser. The diffuser has a diverging passage, that is increase in cross-sectional area. So in the diffuser, the kinetic energy is converted into pressure energy. The increased pressure is denoted by P3 and the decreased velocity is represented by C3 or V3. In practice, nearly half of the total pressure is achieved in the impeller and the rest half is obtained in the diffuser. A pressure ratio of 5:1 can be achieved with a single stage centrifugal compressor, but for higher pressure ratios, that is 12:1 and all, a multi-stage centrifugal air compressor can be used. Now we can see the inlet condition, the pressure is P1 and velocity is V1, and as the air passes through the impeller, we can see the pressure increases to P2 and the velocity increases to V2. And the next stage is the diffuser, which surrounds the impeller. So the air which is coming out of the impeller passes through the diffuser, and once the air passes through the diffuser, the pressure further increases to P3, that is from P2 to P3, but the velocity decreases from V2 to V3. So as the air passes through the impeller, pressure and velocity both increases, and as the air passes through the diffuser, pressure increases but velocity decreases. Next topic is static and stagnation or total head values. The velocities denoted by C or V, like I said earlier. The velocities in a centrifugal compressor is very large when comparing with the reciprocating compressor. For that reason, when considering the total head, it should consist of the head due to velocity also. So for the time being, we'll consider a horizontal passage, as we can see in the figure, of increasing cross-sectional area. Why? Because like in the case of an impeller or diffuser, there also you can see the same trend of increase in area of airflow passage. So in this you can see section 1 and section 2. Section 1 is having smaller cross-sectional area and section 2 is having larger cross-sectional area. So the flow of air is from section 1 to section 2. Also please note, there is no external work done or heat transfer. That is W equal to 0 and Q equal to 0. Now considering the two sections, section 1 and section 2, we will be applying steady flow equation between section 1 and section 2, that you can see in the next slide. Now once you apply the steady flow energy equation between sections 1 and 2, you get the equation H1 plus C1 square by 2 plus GZ1 plus Q equal to H2 plus C2 square by 2 plus GZ2 plus W. Now H stands for enthalpy, C stands for velocity, and Z stands for elevation. Now if there is no external work and no heat is being transferred, then you can write Q equal to W equal to 0, so that our equation will become H1 plus C1 square by 2 plus GZ1 equal to H2 plus C2 square by 2 plus GZ2. Now you have seen the sections 1 and 2, they are at the same level, so that we can write Z1 equal to Z2, and the equation will reduce to H1 plus C1 square by 2 equal to H2 plus C2 square by 2, or in general we can write H plus C square by 2 equal to constant. We know that enthalpy H can be written as Cp into T, where Cp is a specific heated constant pressure, so that we can write at the end Cp plus Cp into T plus C square by 2 is equal to a constant, which we name it as. In equation number 1, we got Cp into T plus C square by 2 equal to constant, where T is called the static temperature. Static temperature of the air is measured with the help of a thermometer, but the thermometer should be moving with the air velocity C. Then the thermometer reading will give temperature T. Now that is static temperature. But if the moving air with kinetic energy is brought to rest without taking any work from the air, then the total kinetic energy of that air is converted into heat energy, increasing the pressure and temperature of the air. This pressure and temperature is known as stagnation or total head temperature and pressure. The stagnation or total head pressure temperature is denoted by suffix 0. If section 2 is under stagnation condition, then equation 1 can be modified as Cpt plus C square by 2 equal to Cp T0 plus C0 square by 2, where T0 is the stagnation temperature, C0 is the stagnation velocity, that is temperature and velocity of the air. Now the equation we got in the previous slide was Cpt plus C square by 2 equal to Cpt0 plus C square by 2. Now T0 and C0 stands for temperature and velocity at stagnation condition respectively. But you need to remember the definition of stagnation condition itself. That is, the moving air has to be brought to rest, that is stationary, in order to get the stagnation properties. So the definition itself says that the velocity at stagnation point should be 0. That is, C0 stands 0 now. The velocity is 0 under stagnation condition. So that the previous equation, what we got in the previous slide, will reduce to Cpt plus C square by 2 equal to Cpt0. C square by 2, that term will vanish now. Now the new equation, we'll name it as equation number 2. Now here I would like to remind you all one thing, that C suffix P stands for specific heat at constant pressure, and the term C square by 2, that C, capital C, stands for velocity. Please do remember that. Now the equation 2 can be reduced further. For example, you see by rearranging Cpt0 minus Cpt equal to C square by 2, or applying the Cpt equation for enthalpy, we can write the same as H0 minus H equal to C square by 2, which we can name it as equation number 3. We can also rearrange equation number 2 as Cp into T0 minus T equal to C square by 2, which will give T0 minus T equal to C square by 2 Cp, which we name it as equation number 4. For finding the stagnation or total head pressure, we can use the equation for an adiabatic process where there is no heat transfer, the temperature pressure relationship for the same. So by applying that, we will get T0 by T equal to T0 by P the whole raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma, which we name as equation number 5. Isentropic efficiency. In ideal case, it is assumed that no losses occur when air flows through the impeller. But that is not the case. In actual case, losses do occur when air flows through the impeller. The 4 losses listed are: losses due to friction between air layers in motion, losses due to friction between air and the impeller surfaces, shock at entry and exit, turbulence or eddies caused by air. Now, due to these losses, enthalpy of the air increases without showing an increase in pressure, which means an increase in internal energy or an increase in temperature. Thus, the actual temperature of the air coming out of the compressor is more than the temperature of air if it is compressed isentropically or adiabatically. Thus, the actual work required to produce the same pressure ratio is more due to these losses, because some amount of work given is converted into internal energy. Now, the details we discussed in the previous slide, we can see over here. Now, this is temperature entropy diagram. Now, you can see the process 1 to 2 dash, that is an ideal isentropic process. Isentropic process, that is S1, S2 dash should be same. It's a vertical line. So that is a ideal isentropic process. But the actual process is something else. The actual process is 1 to 2. You can see here, it's not a vertical line. So ideal goes like this and the actual process goes like this. Then 0, 1, 0, 2, you can see that also those are the stagnation conditions for the states 1 and 2 respectively. Now you can see the pressure, how it varies. Now this one P1 passing through state 1, that means this is the constant pressure line. So wherever you pick in this dotted line, you will be having same pressure, that is P1. Similarly, P01, the stagnant pressure. Now this is P2, pressure P2, which is passing through state 2, as well as it is passing through 2 dash also, like we discussed earlier in the previous slide. The pressure remains the same, that is P2 dash should be equal to P2. The stagnation condition was the same just above, P02, stagnation pressure corresponding to state 2, P02. So here, using this temperature entropy diagram, you can see the actual difference between an ideal isentropic process and an actual. Thus the actual work required will be always more than the work required if the process is isentropic. The isentropic efficiency of a centrifugal compressor is defined as the ratio of the isentropic compression work to the actual compression work. That is, mathematically, isentropic efficiency is nothing but isentropic work divided by actual work. So in the previous figure, what you saw in the previous slide, I believe you remember that the isentropic process was 1 to 2 dash and the actual process being 1 to 2. So isentropic work is equal to Cp into T2 dash minus T1, the temperatures corresponding to isentropic process, and the actual work equation will be Cp into T2 minus T1. But if you consider the stagnation conditions, then the isentropic efficiency can be written as the ratio of isentropic work divided by actual work, which is the same, which is equal to Cp into T02 dash minus T01 divided by Cp into T02 minus T01. Derivation for isentropic efficiency. Isentropic efficiency can also be given by the ratio of isentropic temperature rise to the actual temperature rise. That is, isentropic efficiency equal to isentropic temperature rise divided by actual temperature rise is equal to T02 dash minus T01 divided by T02 minus T01. Now this is by considering the stagnation temperature. But if you consider the static temperature, the equation will be T2 dash minus T1 divided by T2 minus T1. Now during compression, work is being given to the system. So writing steady flow equation, we get H1 plus C1 square by 2 plus GZ1 plus Q equal to H2 plus C2 square by 2 plus GZ2 minus W, since work is given to the system. Now we know that only work is given, there is no heat transfer, so Q will become 0, and section 1 and section 2, assuming they are at the same level, we can write GZ1 equal to GZ2, so that our equation will be reduced to H1 plus C1 square by 2 equal to H2 plus C2 square by 2 minus W. Now H can be written as the product of Cp into T, where Cp is specific heat at constant pressure. So our equation will become Cp into T1 plus C1 square by 2 equal to Cp into T2 plus C. Now from equation number 2, we have Cp into T plus C square by 2 equal to Cp into T0. Now using this relation, we can rewrite the previous equation what we saw in the previous slide as Cp into T01 equal to Cp into T02 minus W, which we can rewrite as work done W equal to Cp into T02 minus Cp into T01. W equal to Cp into T02 minus T01. Now this is the actual or thermodynamic work done. Now thermodynamic work is the work given to the compressor. The isentropic work is given by, we can write using the same expression, W equal to Cp into, instead of T02 we should write it as T02 dash minus T01, because we already saw that in the TS diagram the isentropic process differ from the actual process. Now please note that here we are taking unit mass. Now thus we can write the isentropic efficiency as the ratio of isentropic work done by the actual work done, which is equal to Cp into T02 dash minus T01 divided by Cp into T02 minus T01. Now this is how we obtain the expression. Types of impellers in centrifugal compressor. Now you already showed the pictures of different types of impellers. Now according to the direction of the blade angle, the impellers can be classified as backward, radial and forward impellers. If the angle between the impeller blade tip and the tangent to the impeller is acute, that is beta 2 angle less than 90 degree, then the vanes are backward curved vanes. If the angle between the impeller blade tip and tangent to the impeller is a right angle, that is beta 2 equal to 90 degree, then the vanes are radial curved vanes. Angle between the impeller blade tip and tangent to the impeller is obtuse, that is beta 2 greater than 90 degree, then the vanes are forward curved vanes. Now here you can see the three types of impellers, that is backward curved vanes, forward curved vanes and radial curved vanes. Now in the case of backward curved vane, you can see the angle beta 2 less than 90 degree, and in the case of forward curved vanes you can see the angle beta 2 greater than 90 degree, and in the case of radially curved vanes you can see the angle beta 2 equal to 90 degree. In order to study velocity diagrams of a centrifugal compressor, you should be familiar with the different velocity terms and different angles. You might have seen almost same terms under turbines and pumps where the working fluid was liquid, but here our working fluid is air. So please remember, in the upcoming slides we will be using alphabet capital letter C to represent velocity terms and not V. For example, here you can see V1 stands for absolute velocity of fluid at inlet. So instead of V1 we will be using C suffix 1. VR1 stands for relative velocity of fluid at inlet. So instead of VR1 we will be using CR1. Similarly, VW1, VF1, instead of VW1 we will use C suffix W1. Instead of VF1 we will use C suffix F1, CW1 and CF1. Similarly to represent blade velocity, here we are using U1 and U2, that is mean blade velocity at inlet and outlet respectively. So instead of U we will use C suffix BL. BL stands for blade velocity. So instead of U we will use CBL. Now coming to the velocity diagram, inlet and outlet velocity diagrams. As of now we will proceed with the conventional way of representing velocities and angles, that is V1 absolute velocity of fluid at inlet, U1 blade velocity at inlet, VR1 relative velocity at inlet, VW1 and VF1, those are the velocity components of absolute velocity of fluid at inlet, that is V1. VW1 and VF1 are the velocity components of V1, where VW1 is the whirl component and VF1 is a flow component at inlet. U2 is the mean blade velocity at outlet, VR2 relative velocity of fluid at outlet, V2 absolute velocity of fluid at outlet, and VW2, VF2, the two components of V2. VW2 is the work component, VF2 is the flow component of fluid at outlet. Now we do have four angles here. Alpha 1, it is the exit angle from the gate vane or inlet angle of the gate vane. Beta 1, inlet angle to the rotor or impeller or angle between VR1 with the direction of motion of vane at inlet. Beta 2, outlet angle to the rotor or impeller or angle between VR2 with the direction of motion of vane at inlet. Alpha 2, inlet angle to the diffuser. Now here you can see the inlet velocity triangle and outlet velocity triangle of a centrifugal compressor. Now here we are assuming the air enters radially. So you can see the angles alpha 1 and beta 1 over here. Alpha 1 is equal to 90 degree, that is we are assuming that the air enters radially, so that the whirl component will be 0 and the absolute velocity, that is V1, will be equal to the flow component, that is here there is no whirl component at inlet, so V1 will be equal to Vf1. Whereas in the case of outlet velocity triangle, you can clearly see the two angles alpha 2 and beta 2. Also you can see the absolute velocity, that is V2, has got two components, Vf2 and Vw. Also you can see the blade velocity U2 and relative velocity VR2 in the outlet velocity triangle. Now we are going to find the work done in a centrifugal compressor. For studying the work done in a centrifugal compressor, backward curved vanes is considered, that is the beta 2 angle is less than 90 degree. The following terminologies were changed when the working fluid changed from liquid to air. So like I said earlier, we will be using C1 to represent V1, that is absolute velocity of air at inlet, CR1 representing VR1, relative velocity of air at inlet, CBL1 representing U1, that is blade velocity of impeller at inlet, CW1 representing VW1, velocity of whirl at inlet, CF1 representing VF1, velocity of flow at inlet, and the angles alpha 1 representing alpha, beta 1 representing theta, alpha 2 representing beta, beta 2 representing phi. Now in the case of velocities, here only the inlet velocity components, different velocity components are given. Similarly you can take C2, CR2, CBL2, CW2, CF2 for the velocity components at outlet. Pressure coefficient versus flow coefficient for three types of impellers, that is backward curved vane, forward curved vane and radial curved vanes. We can see as the beta 2 angle varies, how the pressure coefficient varies with flow coefficient. Now in order to find out the work done in a centrifugal compressor, like I said earlier, we have considered backward curved vanes where the beta 2 angle is less than 90 degree. We can see for backward curved vanes how the pressure coefficient varies with flow coefficient. Now here figure A and figure B shows the inlet and outlet velocity triangles for the impeller. Now we have already seen these two velocity diagrams in the previous slides. So it is assumed that the air enters radially, that is alpha 1 angle is 90 degree, C1 is equal to CF1, CW1 is equal to 0. Now here you can see this alpha 1 angle is 90 degree, that is air enters radially in the inlet velocity triangle. So CBL1, which is representing blade velocity, previously we used to represent U1. So instead of U1 we will write CBL1, and here you can see instead of V1 it is C1. So C1 will be equal to the flow component, that is CF1, since the whirl component at inlet is 0. CW1 is equal to 0. and CR1 is used to represent the relative velocity at inlet instead of VR1. Similarly, in outlet velocity triangle also you can see all the different velocity components and angles alpha 2 and beta 2. Here the velocity components, the absolute velocity component C2, which has got two components, whirl component as well as flow component here, CW2 as well as CF2, and the relative velocity component is represented by CR2, and the blade velocity instead of U2 here we are using CBL2, the blade velocity at outlet, CBL2. So please be familiar with the velocity components and different angles. We will be using the same terms in order to derive the work done in the case of a centrifugal compressor. Theoretical work done by the impeller or Euler's work. Now, the work done in a centrifugal compressor is found by rate of change of momentum, that is work done equal to mass flow rate into initial velocity minus final velocity. So m dot into Cw2r2 minus Cw1r1 into angular velocity, that is omega. So m dot into Cw2r2 into omega minus Cw1r1 into omega. Now we know that r into omega stands for blade velocity at outlet and inlet respectively. So r2 into omega is equal to Cb12 and r1 into omega is the blade velocity at inlet Cbl1. So substituting that, we will get work done equal to m dot into Cw2 Cbl2 minus Cw1 into Cbl1, which we name it as equation number 1. Now if the air enters radially, then our whirl component at inlet becomes 0, that is Cw1 equal to 0, and we will get equation number 2 by substituting the same, that is work done equal to m dot into Cw2 into Cbl2. If the mass flow rate is equal to 1 kg per second, then the work done equation will further reduce to Cw2 into Cbl2, which we name it as equation number 3. Now the equation number 3 is known as Euler's work. Euler's work is the work done on fluid by the impeller. Actual or thermodynamic work and Euler's work. Work done can be calculated in two ways, that is actual work and Euler's work. Actual or thermodynamic work is the actual work absorbed by the air during the compression process. Now we know that actual work is equal to Cp into T2 minus T1, where Cp is a specific heat at constant pressure, which is equal to 1005 joule per kilogram Kelvin. T2 is the final temperature at exit. T1 is the initial temperature at inlet. Now if there are n number of stages, then the above equation is modified as actual work for all stages equal to n into Cp into T2 minus T1. Work done by the impeller in terms of Euler's form. Now work done can also be written in Euler's form. Now from the inlet velocity triangle, now here we are taking the general inlet velocity triangle where alpha 1 is not equal to 90 degree and Cw1 is not equal to 0. So from the general inlet velocity triangle, we can write Cr1 square equal to Cf1 square plus Cw1 minus Cbl1 the whole square, which is equal to Cr1 square equal to Cf1 square plus Cw1 minus Cbl1 the whole square. Now this is in the form A minus B the whole square. So expanding that, we will get this equation: CR1 square equal to CF1 square plus CW1 square plus CBL1 square minus 2 CW1 CBL1. Now rearranging the same equation, we will get equation number A, that is CW1 CBL1 equal to C1 square plus CBL1 square minus CR1 square whole divided by 2. Now similarly, from the outlet velocity triangle, we can obtain similar relationship, and we name it as equation number B, equation B, CW2 into CBL2 equal to C2 square plus CBL2 square minus CR2 square whole divided by 2. For unit mass flow rate, the work done equation will reduce to CW2 CBL2 minus CW1 into CBL1. Now into this equation we will substitute equations A and B. We will get work done equal to C2 square plus CBL2 square minus CR2 square divided by 2 minus C1 square plus CBL1 square minus CR1 square divided by 2. Now rearranging the previous equation, we will get the final form for work done. Work done WD equal to C2 square minus C1 square divided by 2 plus CR1 square minus CR2 square divided by 2 plus CBL2 square minus CBL1 square divided by 2. So we have three terms in the final equation. Now this equation is known as Euler's equation for work done. Now the first term shows the increase in kinetic energy of 1 kilogram of air in the impeller that has to be converted to potential energy in the diffuser. Now the second term, that is CR1 square minus CR2 square by 2. Now the second term shows the potential energy rise in the impeller due to increasing cross-sectional area, as it can be seen that CR1 greater than CR2. Now the third term that is CBL2 square minus CBL1 square divided by 2. That is the third term in the Euler's equation for work done. Now that third term shows the potential energy rise in the impeller due to centrifugal action. Now since the working fluid enters at a lower diameter and leaves at a higher diameter. Power required per impeller. We saw that the work done in a centrifugal compressor is given by work done WD equal to m dot, which is a mass flow rate of air, into CW2 PL2 minus CW1 CBL1. Now if the air enters radially, then CW1 will be equal to 0. Then our work done equation will be reduced to m dot into CW2 into CBL2. Work done equal to m dot into CW2 into CBL2 divided by 1000 in kilowatt units. We name it as equation number 1. For a unit mass, specific work done is given by WD equal to CW2 into CBL2 divided by 1000 kilowatt. If the impeller blade shape is radial, then we know that beta 2 angle is equal to 90 degree and CW2 will be equal to CBL2 and CR2 will be equal to CF2. Then the work done equation becomes WD equal to CBL2 square, or next we will see the factors affecting power. Now the work done can also be written as work done equal to MCP into T02 minus T01, where T02, T01 represents the temperature at stagnation points with respect to state 2 and state 1 respectively. So power can be written as work done per second, which is equal to m dot, which is a mass flow rate, into Cp into T02 minus T01. For unit mass flow rate, that is when m dot equal to 1 kilogram per second, power equation equation for finding power equal to Cp into T02 minus T01. Now from this equation, T01 we need to take it outside, so the equation will be Cp into T01 into T02 divided by T01 minus 1. Now here what we are going to do is we will apply the temperature pressure relationship for an adiabatic process which we saw earlier. We will use that relationship to substitute for T02 and T01, both numerator and denominator. So outside the bracket we will use Cp into T01 as such, and inside, instead of T02 we will substitute T2 into P02 by P2 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma, using temperature pressure relationship for an adiabatic process. And in the denominator, instead of T01 we will write T1 into P01 by P1 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. Now rearranging the same equation, Cp into T01 whole into T2 by T1 into P02 by P2 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma into P1 by P01 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. In the previous equation, rearranging the two pressures P2 and P01, we will get this equation, power equal to Cp into T01 into T2 by T1 into P02 by P01 the whole raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma into P1 by P2 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. Now in this equation, P1 by P2 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma is equal to, using the temperature pressure relationship, we can write T1 by T2. So substituting that, we will get power equal to Cp into T01 into T2 by T1 into P02 by P01 whole raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma into T1 by T2 minus 1. So this T2 by T1 into T1 by T2, we will get 1. So the temperature terms will vanish and we will get power equal to Cp into T01 into P02 by P01 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. Writing the final equation, power equal to Cp into T01 into, instead of P02 by P01, we will use the term pressure ratio based on stagnation pressure, that is gamma suffix P0. So power equal to Cp into T01 into gamma P0 raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1, where gamma P0, like I said, it is a pressure ratio based on stagnation pressure. Similarly, for static head, power can be written as Cp into, instead of T01 we will write T1, instead of gamma P0 we will write gamma P raised to gamma minus 1 by gamma minus 1. We name it as equation number 1. Now from equation number 1, it can be seen that the power input to the compressor depends on the following factors. The first one, mass flow of air through compressor. Here in the final equation, equation number 1, mass flow of air is not there because we already assumed that it is 1 kilogram per second, but it depends flow of air, equation number 1. Second is temperature of air at inlet of the compressor, T1, and the third term being pressure ratio, that is gamma P of the compressor. Next we will find expressions for width of blades of impeller and diffuser. M dot equal to mass of air flowing per second, that is mass flow rate. B1 equal to width or height of the impeller at inlet. Cf1 equal to velocity of flow at inlet of the impeller. Rho1 density of air at inlet. R1 radius of impeller at inlet. So we can write mass flow rate of air m dot equal to density into flow area into flow velocity, that is rho1 into 2 pi r1 b1 into Cf1, which we can rearrange to obtain the expression for width of impeller at inlet B1 equal to m dot divided by rho1 into 2 pi r1 into Cf1, which we name it as equation number 1. Now if the inlet air is entering radially, then we can write alpha 1 equal to 90 degree, and we know that C1 will be equal to Cf1. So the expression for width of impeller at inlet B1 will be equal to m dot divided by rho1 into 2 pi r1 into, instead of Cf1, C1, since C1 is equal to Cf1. Now similarly, from equation 1, the width of impeller blade at outlet is given by, instead of B1 we can write B2 equal to m dot divided by rho2 into 2 pi r2 into Cf2, which we name it as equation number 2. Now next we will take width of the impeller at outlet equal to width of the diffuser blade at inlet. Now that's a condition we are using to find out the width of the diffuser blade at inlet, so that we can write B2 equal to Bi equal to m dot divided by rho2 into 2 pi r2 into Cf2. Now this expression we found out in the previous slide. Similarly, the width of the diffuser blade at outlet is given by Bo equal to m dot divided by rho d into 2 pi r2 into Cfd, where rho d represents the density of working fluid at diffuser outlet and Cfd stands for velocity of working fluid at diffuser. Now this graph shows the characteristics of backward vane centrifugal compressor. Now you can see the Euler head almost remains the same as the capacity varies. Now this is a graph with head versus capacity. So you can see ideal head slightly varies from Euler head due to slip and non-uniform velocities, whereas the actual head varies considerably due to the losses. And also you can see the total loss increases as the capacity. Roots blower is a positive displacement rotary compressor. It is also called lobe compressor. Positive displacement compressors are those compressors in which air is compressed by being trapped in the space formed by two sets of engaging surfaces, and the pressure of air is increased by backflow of air or squeezing action. Blowers are used for supplying large quantity of air with comparatively low pressure. Now the Roots blower is a low pressure blower and is limited to a delivery pressure of 1 bar in a single stage design and up to 2 bar in a 2-stage design. Its discharge capacity is limited to 1500 meter cube per minute and it can run up to 7000 rpm. Now this figure shows a 2-lobe type rotor Roots blower. Roots blower consists of 2-lobed rotors and casing with inlet and outlet passage of air. The lobe rotors rotate in an airtight casing with the help of gears. Now one of the lobe rotors is connected to drive. Now the second lobe rotor is gear driven from the first. Now here in the pressure volume diagram you can see the suction pressure is P1 and the delivery pressure is P2, and in between it is shown that irreversible pressure rise due to backflow from receiver. So you can see here the volume sucked is 4 times the volume. Now this volume V represents the volume of air trapped between the casing surface and lobe. So Vs equal to 4V, that means it requires 4 revolution to increase the pressure from P1 to P2, that is the pressure of delivery due to the backflow from receiver. So it requires 4 revolution to increase the pressure from P1 to P2. Now this portion irreversible pressure rise due to backflow we will see in the next few slides. Now we will see the construction and working of Roots blower. Now talking about the construction, it consists of 2 rotors with lobes. An airtight casing contains these rotating lobes. The shape of the lobe is epicycloid or hypocycloid or involute. Now there is an inlet and outlet port. A receiver is connected to the outlet port. Receiver is a storage tank which stores the compressed air from the compressor. Now talking about the working, air from the atmosphere enters the compressor through the inlet port. At first, when the lobe rotates, this air is trapped between the left hand lobe and the casing. Now this trapped air is delivered to the receiver as the lobe further rotates. Thus more and more air flows from the flows into the receiver, which increases the pressure. Now the same process continues with the right hand lobe, and the process continues. Now earlier in the pressure volume diagram we saw that the pressure rise from P1 to P2 is due to the backflow of air. Now here we will see that in detail. Now when the rotating lobe uncovers the exit port, the high pressure air from the receiver flows back into the casing. Now this flow of air reduces the pressure inside the receiver. Now this high pressure air which enters the casing is mixed with the fresh air trapped inside the casing. Now this mixing of air increases the pressure of air trapped inside the casing at constant volume. Now finally the high pressure mixed air from the compressor flows to the receiver. The backflow process continues till the mixture of air inside the casing and the air inside the receiver attains equal pressure, that is P2. This process happens 4 times per revolution of the driving shaft. Now you can see in this PV diagram, pressure volume diagram, the volume Vs remains the same as the pressure is increased from P1 to P2, so that we can write the actual work done equal to P2 minus P1 into Vs. Now with this we will conclude the first part of the presentation of module 6 of subject ME206 fluid machinery. Thank you all.